This is the sixth lesson of Life in the UK Test Study Guide 2026 edition course, which is the essential guide for ILR and British citizenship. So in this course, I am trying to teach you the whole of the study guide, the whole of the Life in the UK book, so that you can understand the book properly and then answer the questions easily, whether you do the practice test or whether you do the actual test. Because every test, whether mock exams, practice test, or online on your apps or whatever, that is made from this book, okay, out of this book, because this is the source. So if you haven't watched my previous videos, please go ahead and watch them. So I have made so far 5 lessons, and you can start from the beginning, and this is how you cover the whole book. So a brief introduction about the book. I try to give this brief introduction in every video because sometimes people just start from any video. So every video should give them a complete piece of information about what is going on. Okay, so whosoever joins us now, they should know that we are doing using this latest edition of 2026 edition of the Life in the UK Test Study Guide, and that is the book that you can buy from any bookstore, or you can get from your local library. You can borrow that, and then you can use that. If you don't want to buy, or if you don't want to borrow, that's fine. In this video, I will show you the page numbers, the pictures of the pages, and then we will study the materials, and I will try to highlight the most important bits which you can pay special attention to, and I will tell you how to answer the questions and how the questions are asked or made from that. So in this way you will have a very good understanding of the text, and then you can answer questions whatever way they are in your exam. So there are 7 chapters in the book. Chapter 1, 7 and 8 are not tested, which means that you will have no questions in the exam from these chapters. It is chapter number 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 that are tested, and this is what we are focusing on at the moment. Okay, so as I said that we will start from Anglo-Saxons. We covered up to this point in our last video, so that's why if you haven't watched my last video, please go back and watch that first, because we stopped here in our last video, so at this point. Okay, so now today we will be talking about Anglo-Saxons. So the Roman army left Britain in AD 410 to defend other parts of the Roman Empire and never returned. Okay, the question is, when did the Roman army left Britain? And then sometimes you will have 4 options. Sometimes you will have this as a statement, and you will be asked to find whether it's true or false. So if everything matches this statement, then it would be true. Sometimes what they do is they change these dates. So for example, they might say the Roman army left Britain in AD 415, and you will be asked whether this is true or false, and obviously that would be false because it is 410. So Britain was again invaded by the tribes from northern Europe, the Jutes, the Angles and the Saxons. So once the Roman army left Britain, so these 3 tribes from northern Europe, they made an alliance, and then they came and attacked England, and obviously invaded here. The languages they spoke were the basis of modern day English. So these people spoke languages, and it was a mix of 3 languages, you could say. So in this way, these were the basics of English language that we speak today. So that was the start of English language, you could say. Battles were fought against the invaders, but about AD 600, Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were established in Britain. Like Romans, they had some resistance, but by AD 600, Anglo-Saxons fully established their rule here in Britain. So this is one of the questions, you remember that. So simply, whenever I highlight something, you can understand that's the most important bit in that paragraph or in that sentence. Okay, So pay special attention to this. It doesn't mean that questions cannot come outside this, but these are based on my experience and based on how the tests are made. If you focus on these highlighted bits, you would definitely pass your test if you understand them. These kingdoms were mainly what is now in England. So basically, Anglo-Saxons mostly ruled in England. Today's England. The burial place of one of the kings was at Sutton Hoo in modern Suffolk. So this is, strangely, this is a very important bit. And they ask you the question, where is the burial place of one of the Anglo-Saxon kings? And that is in Suffolk or Sutton Hoo. This king was buried with treasure and armor, all placed in a ship, which was then covered by a mound of earth. So this is the armor. Okay, you could see that. So he was buried with armor, with jewelry, whatever the king had. Everything goes down with him. Right, so parts of west of Britain, including much of what is now Wales, Scotland, and Wales and Scotland remain free of Anglo-Saxon rule. So that's the important bit. Wales and Scotland were never conquered by Anglo-Saxons. It was only England. The Anglo-Saxons were not Christians when they first came to Britain, but during this period, missionaries came to Britain to preach Christianity. Okay, so they were not Christians. This could be a true or false statement. So you could be given two statements. For example, Anglo-Saxons were not Christians when they came to Britain. Anglo-Saxons were Christians when they came to Britain. So they would ask you to choose the correct option. Okay, so missionaries from Ireland spread the religion in the north. This is very important. The most famous of these was St. Patrick, who would become the patron saint of Ireland. Okay, now we are talking about different missionaries who came to spread Christianity here. So St. Patrick was one of the persons who spread religion in the north, and he was from Ireland. So that's why he is the patron saint of Ireland. Okay, for more of right, and Saint Columba, who founded a monastery on the island of Iona, off the coast of what is now Scotland. Saint Augustine led missionaries from Rome who spread Christianity in the south. So now this is the name of different people. Where did they come from and where did they spread Christianity? Saint Augustine became the first Archbishop of Canterbury. Okay, so that's important. And so these are the names. So for example, in this paragraph, we learned who is the patron saint of Ireland, who was the first Archbishop of Canterbury, Saint Augustine, and who established a monastery on the island of Iona. So that was Saint Columba. Okay. Later on, we will talk about and learn about patron saints of all four countries: England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. Okay, that's one of the most important questions. So you will have questions about their patron saints, you will have questions about their national foods, you will have questions about their national flowers. All of this is coming here in this chapter, so we will be looking at that. All right, so this was the brief introduction of Anglo-Saxon. Now comes Vikings. The Vikings came from Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. These are the three countries from where Vikings came in. Okay, these were very brutal warriors. They first visited Britain in AD 789 to raid coastal towns and take away goods and slaves. So what they would do is, they would come, they would attack on the coastal towns, means on the beach, and then they would plunder. Okay, they would take slaves, they would take valuables, and then they would go back. Okay, so they would come, they would attack, they would plunder, they would go back. Then they begin to stay and form their own communities in east of England and Scotland. So after some time, they thought, okay, every time we come here, we plunder and we go back. Why not stay here? Because this is a rich country, so let's stay here. So they started staying in east of England and in Scotland. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms of England united under King Alfred the Great, who defeated the Vikings. But when they decided to stay here, the people who were ruling here, Anglo-Saxons, They were worried that these people would come and they might take our garments, our thrones. So they united under King Alfred the Great and then defeated Vikings. This is an extremely important information. So the Anglo-Saxon question is, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms united under who? Under which king? So the answer is King Alfred the Great. And did they defeat Vikings or no? Yes, they defeated. Many of the Viking invaders stayed in Britain, especially in east of Northern and areas known as Danelaw and Grimsby and Scunthorpe come from the Viking languages. So wherever Vikings stayed, obviously they gave names to places in their own language. So sometimes you have the question, the words Danelaw, words Grimsby, words Scunthorpe comes from which languages? So that would be Viking languages, okay? The Viking settlers mixed with local communities and some converted to Christianity, not important. Anglo-Saxon kings continued to rule what is now England. So in Scotland, they defeated Vikings under King Alfred the Great. But now people, except for a short period when the Danish kings, the first of which was known as Canute or Canute. In England, still Anglo-Saxon ruled, okay, apart from a very short time when Danish kings ruled, okay, but threat was still there. In the north, the threat of attack by Vikings had encouraged the people to unite under King Kenneth MacAlpin. So Kenneth MacAlpin was the king under whose, you could say, other armies joined, and they considered him as their chief or the king or the leader, and they tried to defend their own places from Vikings attacks. The term Scotland began to be used to describe that country, and the area where Kenneth MacAlpin ruled is known as Scotland now. Okay, so here in England, when Vikings started attacking, so small kingdoms, they united under King Alfred the Great, and they defeated Vikings, and this is how they protected themselves. In Scotland, they came under King Kenneth MacAlpin. So these are the two names that you have to remember, okay? The Norman Conquest. This is probably one of the most important turning points in British history. So please make sure you listen to that very carefully. And from this paragraph, I would say you will have 2 or 3 questions. Every time you will have at least 2 questions from this paragraph. In 1066, an invasion led by William the Duke of Normandy in what is now northern France defeated Harold, the Saxon king of England, at the Battle of Hastings. Okay, so in 1066, Duke of Normandy, who was the king, William the Duke of Normandy from France, he came, attacked England and defeated Harold, who was the Saxon king of England. And the battle is known as the Battle of Hastings. Okay, so Harold, okay, now from this sentence, you will have many questions. So for example, who attacked in 1066? William, the Duke of Normandy. Sometimes the question is, in 1066, who led an invasion into England? The Duke of Normandy. Then the question would be, Duke of Normandy defeated which king? Harold. And who was that king? He was the Saxon king. Okay, and what's the name of the battle in which Duke of Normandy William defeated Harold? Sometime, what is the date of Battle of Hastings? Because 1066. Okay, so see that you could, if you understand, if you know this bit, you can answer many questions. Harold was killed in the battle. William became the King of England and is known as William the Conqueror. He is also known as William the Conqueror as well as William the Duke of Normandy. The battle is commemorated in a great piece of embroidery known as Bayeux Tapestry, which can still be seen today in France. Okay, now because that was a very important battle, so what some artists did was that they made an embroidery. We will have a look at this. Okay, so this is the embroidery. So Bayeux Tapestry means that it's a long piece of cloth. It is actually 70 meters long, 230 feet long, and it is the thread work. Okay, so they're just to remember that, to memorize, or to maybe commemorate this battle. So this is in France. Now, it's a very strange thing, but sometimes you will have questions about this embroidered piece. They would say, how long is the Bay Tapestry? 70 meters, sometimes in feet. Anyhow, let's move on. The Norman Conquest was the last successful foreign invasion of England led by any foreign government and social structure of England. This is very, very important. This means that after Normans, nobody else from outside came and attacked and was successful. Nobody came. Okay, so this was the last successful invasion. Okay. Norman French, the language of the new ruling class. So they spoke Norman French. So that's why French words were mixed with British English. Okay, and today we have many words in which are based in French language. Okay. Okay, nothing important here. So now this one. William sent people all over England to draw up list of all the towns and villages. Now, William was a very, very clever man. So what he did was he sent his agents people and asked them to make a list of towns, cities, how many people. So the people who lived there, okay, who owned the land and what animals they own and listed. Means full detail of. It is more like census, yeah. How many people live there, how many animals they have, how many children they have, okay, houses, properties, everything. So when these agents would go out and collect this information, they would come back and they would write all of those records in a book which was known as the Domesday Book. Okay, so it is more like collecting data and putting on. So these days you have data banks and website. In the old days they used to different agents would come back with different information, and they would write all of that information in one big book which is known as the Domesday Book. It still exists today and gives us the picture of society in England of the Norman Conquest. So this book still exists, and if you look at that book you can tell what type of society was that. All right, so this is the end of today's lesson, almost the end of the lesson. So now what I would say is that if you have been highlighting along with me, that's a great idea. Okay, if you don't have the book, fine, no problem. So you watch this video again and again, look at these highlighted bits, try to understand them, and then next thing is your homework. Okay, so after every lesson I give you 10 questions so to consolidate your learning so that you can tell yourself how much you have learned. So what you do is you don't have to write these questions. Just stop the video here, look at the questions and write their answers in your notebooks. Okay, you don't have to write full sentences, just 1 word, 2 word, 3 words, whatever can reflect your learning. Now and then go back to the video, or if you have highlighted stuff in your books, go back on to see whether you have answered correctly or not. Check your answers, okay? And if your answers are wrong, some of them, read that bit again. It means that you didn't understand that. So if you carry on doing this thing, you will definitely learn, and obviously you will definitely be able to answer any question. So this is how you will prepare yourself for life in the UK test. Okay, so that's the end of today's lesson. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best. I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.